Can we turn this down a little bit? Yes, Monday morning. So welcome to the committee. I'm joined today by Mr. Weezar and Mr. Harris Dawson. Mr. Clerk, I believe we have a few items that we can move on consent. If you'd read those items. I think that's 6, 7, 8, 9.
Good morning, John White, City Clerk. Items 6, 7, 8, and 9. Item 6 is Resolution Rue Wesson Koretz and the CLA to report relative to including the city's 2017-18 federal legislation program, support for S 1827 HR 3921, and the reauthorization of the Children's Health Insurance Program at funding levels similar to and consistent with the Medicare Access and CHIP Reauthorization Act of 2015. Item 17, motion Wesson O'Farrell relative to allocating $10,000 in funding for Bridge DTLA to provide website services for Embrace LA project. Item 8, resolution Buscaino Englander and CLA report relative to requesting the California Department of Transportation to perform a comprehensive study to implement Caltrans Deputy Directive 64R2 along Pacific Coast Highway within city limits between State Route 103 Wesley to Southwestern Avenue. And item 9, resolution Blumenfield Rodriguez Wesson and CLA report relative to including in the city's 2017-2018 federal legislative program opposition to any administrative action, including the proposed Restoring Internet Freedom Plan that would eliminate internet service providers' net neutrality rules.
Thank you. So let's do it this way. On item 6, we will adopt the CLA report and the resolution. 7 will adopt the motion. 8 will adopt the CLA report and resolution. We'll do the same thing on item 9. We'll adopt the CLA report and resolution. So members, without objection, those items will be deemed approved. Okay. I think what I want to do is try to start off with, in fact, I have a rep here from Mr. Blumenfield's office. It's my understanding they wanted to read a letter into the record. And I know you have other things, so why don't we start off with you? Good morning. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, council members Weezar and Harris Dawson. Appreciate the time today. Apologies that Councilmember Blumenfield couldn't be here, but he asked me to read a letter on his behalf to all of you. It's regarding item 2, as we mentioned, to the members of the Rules, Elections, and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. Dear Councilmember Wesson, I'm writing to underscore my strong conviction and desire that, as part of the city's new licensing scheme for cannabis sales, that we prohibit the use of cash for all cannabis transactions. Specifically, we must make the issuance of a permanent license contingent upon the retailer's agreement to make cash transactions for cannabis or cannabis products. This will allow sufficient time for adjustment, as the permanent licenses will take months to be issued, but a 6-month adjustment period could also be built in to allay timing concerns. Doing so would be transformative and would revolutionize the cannabis industry in very positive ways. Los Angeles would be the first city to go cashless and would undoubtedly lead the way for others. Importantly, it is feasible. Products are available today that allow cashless cannabis transactions, and a mandate would ensure even more products would enter the market. There are credit union apps such as are used in Hawaii, gift card type of payment cards such as Links that use the automated clearinghouse network to make the financial transactions, and others such as the Expo, the electronic exchange portal presented by Alliance Financial Network. As reported by Forbes, a, quote, debit app called CanPay steps in to provide an alternative to cash-only transactions. It is partnered with Safe Harbor Private Banking, a Denver-based division of Partner Colorado Credit Union, which is a leading compliant banking program that specializes in working with cannabis companies, unquote. Furthermore, were the entire cannabis industry in Los Angeles to go cashless, other banking possibilities would emerge and be made possible by the market's scale. There are cashless solutions that have been tested and proven not to run afoul of federal laws or restrictions. We do not need to choose which one of these cashless alternatives is the best. The market will. However, because all of these cashless systems are more complicated and more costly than cash, none of them can easily compete against cash. Consequently, if we want the societal benefits of a cashless system, we need a mandate. The benefits and negative costs of a cash system are borne mostly by society and therefore not reflected in the decision-making of dispensaries that choose what type of payment option they will accept. To make the market work, we must remove the cash option. The Department of Finance currently accepts electronic tax payments from dispensaries that use existing cashless systems. Certain dispensaries in Los Angeles and elsewhere are successfully offering cashless sales. The president of the UCBA in Los Angeles is quoted on one cashless alternative products website as saying that, quote, "Their services are a perfect match for our needs," end quote. The state of Hawaii requires each of its dispensaries to offer a cashless payment option. Cashless options are not just theoretical, they are currently in practice. Cash-free cannabis would promote several important public goals. First, while cashless systems have some costs, they allow the city and the cannabis industry to avoid other significant costs associated with securing, transporting, and processing large amounts of cash. This is not only a long-term money saver, but it avoids the immediate planning and design costs associated with the onslaught of expected cash in this new business. The Department of Finance won't have to fortify its operations to accept all this new cash, and dispensaries won't have to design fortresses to store cash on their premises. Second, eliminating cash makes cannabis businesses and city facilities accepting tax and fee payments less of a target for robberies and violent crime, which has been a significant problem. This would allow LAPD to focus resources on the illegal cannabis trade and make it easier to do so because the fact of a cash transaction would be an indicator of an unlicensed business. Also, it helps alleviate neighborhood fears about cannabis businesses being a magnet for crime in their communities. Third, just as the track and trace system is aimed at preventing diversions of cannabis product to the black market, a cashless system would deter money laundering, tax avoidance, and out-of-state sales, and thus make it less likely that the Trump administration and Sessions Department of Justice will interfere with California's cannabis legalization program. Also, it would likely result in higher tax yields. I introduced the motion for us to investigate a cashless mandate back in June. It was heard and discussed by the Budget Committee in October with a verbal report by the Department of Finance. The Council unanimously directed the City Attorney to draft the ordinance. It is now time for us to pass the ordinance. Doing so will send a clear message to the markets that we are serious about cashless alternatives, and between now and when permanent licenses go into effect, we will see a cashless tidal wave begin in Los Angeles that will sweep across the state and then the nation. I appreciate your committee's hard work on these important policy issues, and I thank you for your support of the proposed ordinance to prohibit cash sales of cannabis. Sincerely, Bob Blumenfield, Council Member, City of Los Angeles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming in to read that. All right, so let's take some more public comment at this time. Why don't we start, I want to take the remaining items, I want to lump them together so we can just call up, when I do public comment, people can just talk about them all. You want to run through it?
Well, I could read the next of the items 1 through 5 in the record for you, and as far as speakers, they would have 1 minute each, but if they're multiple items,
We're going to go 1 minute each this way, so I want to make sure I give everybody a chance.
Okay.
So anyway, just to cut through that, now I'm just going to do general public comment. You guys can speak on any item that is left on the agenda. That's one way to simplify it. So Mike, why don't we, from Sun Valley, why don't we have you come up first, and then is it Gary Haggis and Zachary Pitts? Rachel Johnson. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. My name is Mike O'Gara. Today, the Sun Valley Area Neighborhood Council submitted a letter with items that concern us. The most egregious condition in these rules and regulations is the section that states, any owner, business, entity, or individual with a felony conviction for violent crimes, sex trafficking, rape, crimes against children, gang crime, gun crimes, hate crimes, and crimes involving criminal organizations will be banned from commercial cannabis activity within the City of Los Angeles for a period of 10 years from the date of conviction. We feel that this condition is horrendous. The stated crime in this paragraph are violent crimes against people, not necessarily related to cannabis in any way. Anyone having been convicted of any of these crimes should be banned from ever receiving a cannabis license unless their conviction's been expunged or that person's been pardoned of the crime. The other major concern we have is that based on the fact that no one from the San Fernando Valley is going to be considered for social equity consideration, we fear there'll be a lawsuit, and we think you should delay the vote on this until it's carefully vetted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Next. Yes, sir.
Good morning, council members. I am Gary Agus from Sun Valley. Please pay special attention to page 7 of the letter we submitted today outlining the concerns of the Sun Valley Area Neighborhood Council. We are requesting a Neighborhood Council Community Benefits Fund, Trust Fund, to be administered by the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and set up to receive contributions from each licensed cannabis business. Neighborhood councils would be able to draw on this account for items that we don't normally have budgets for, and we could be more effective if we had access to these funds directly for each neighborhood council. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker.
Hello, my name is Zachary Pitts. My companions in the Los Angeles Delivery Alliance have a vision for a robust new industry with good-paying jobs and significant tax revenues, a licensing system that would right some of the wrongs of the drug war and create a safe and responsible market for cannabis. The City Council has made significant strides in accomplishing these goals, particularly through groundbreaking proposals like the Social Equity Program. But to fully realize this success, we need to have provisional licensing for delivery. This ensures that patients that most rely on us still have access to medicine while bringing in the good operators most interested in complying with the law and without the nuisance of more storefronts. These same operators are the foundation of incubation and mentorship of the Tier 1 and Tier 2 social equity licenses and will help lead to the overall success of the social equity program. I urge you to consider how much provisional licensing means to existing delivery operators, employees, and patients. Thank you very much.
Next speaker.
Good morning, President Wesson and members of the council. My name is Rachel Johnson, and I represent the Los Angeles Delivery Alliance, urging this council to bring a motion to allow for delivery to receive provisional licensing on day one. As the daughter of a judge who was also a pastor that grew up in a drug-ravaged neighborhood in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I understand you, your constituents, and all of the concerns regarding inviting cannabis into your neighborhoods. I understand them all too well. However, I believe that opening the door to delivery can be an answer to many of the problems you've raised. Delivery has no ugly green crosses, no public foot traffic, and most of all, no public nuisance, while at the same time promoting social equity through minority ownership, low overhead, and high probability of success, with the right mentorship, of course. When you think delivery, I want you to think discretion. We pride ourselves on being discreet. I think your neighborhoods and voters will appreciate that too.
Thank you. So if I can get Donnie Anderson, Sarah Armstrong, Raphael Bernardino Jr., Ravini Amataj, come forward.
Good morning. Good morning, President Weston. My name is Raphael Bernardino. I'm here to speak against item 2 on the agenda. It is contrary to the facts. These businesses they're entirely cash businesses. My issue here is that the customers are not going to have access to this. This is very important. I would urge you to look at the lawsuit Bautista versus Valero in the Northern District of California. It shows how poor people, elderly people, students, disabled people don't have access to credit cards or other things, and when they do, they're charged excessive rates for them. That is what you're doing here. Also, it's contrary to law. The United States Code provides that currency is used for all debts, public and private. So this is against, it doesn't make sense factually, and it's contrary to law. We think it's bad policy, and it will hurt the customers because they don't have access to credit markets and these apps and other things. It's a mistake, and it would be a death knell for legal commercial cannabis in this city.
Thank you. Next, Sarah.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. I am Sarah Armstrong, Director of Industry Affairs for Americans for Safe Access. and the policy chair for the Southern California Coalition. I stand before you today to bring to your attention the letter we've distributed. Mr. Blumenfield paints a rosy picture of alternatives to cash, but in point of fact, the cannabis community has tried all of them, been ripped off by some of them, and faced grave injury in other ways, most notably because the federal government is not too enthusiastic about these systems, and because we are forced to buy into them. If the federal government goes after the organizations, we lose our money, so do you. I urge you to allow cash payments. No cannabis business wants to make them. They make every effort to keep bank accounts, use debit cards, whatever they can do. But until we can solve this problem at the federal level, we must ask for your compassion in this matter, and that you help us by allowing cash payments when no other option is available. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
How are you? Thank you for having us today. What other business that is cashless? What other industry that doesn't accept cash? I don't know of it. I wouldn't trust no one to have our money and for us to turn in our money, period. And then who's going to be accountable if they run off or file bankruptcy? See, they don't think these things out. Now, we'll trust the city because we know where we can come and get our money if the city open a bank. But until then, we're going to continue to operate with cash. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Good morning. My name is Ruvini Omathage, and I'm speaking on item 1. I work at a delivery service, and as a former PharmD student, I can attest to that I use the same compassion used in healthcare as I do in the delivery service. We help people who are disabled, elderly, and people who are trying to get off the addictive crisis of opioids. We service neighborhoods, likely people in your district, whose medical needs prevent them from seeing in-house dispensaries. It's not a want that they need delivery service, it's a necessity for them. Our diverse backgrounds allow us to exercise compassion for these people, and it allows us to make better ethical decisions in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So if I can now get Cherie Franklin, Lamar Williams, Elliot, can't quite make out the last name, from the LA Delivery Alliance, and Patrick Brooks. Hey there.
Hey there. Good morning, Cherie Franklin with Think and Grow Lab. A few points for these community benefits. We need to keep community benefits. I believe that the neighborhood council can play a critical role in helping us decide how do we utilize those funds. For a local hire, it has to be a mandate. There's a mandate on the social equity side, but not on the general side, and that's not, it doesn't seem like that's equitable. We know from history in the city that if we do not have teeth in the local hire program, it will not happen. Mandate that they work with local community-based organizations, the city's WorkSource Center, and do the outreach and as well as the job placement, and we need to track that with some kind of report. Regarding item number 2, before an ordinance is passed, we need to make sure that we focus on the banking side of making this industry available, and Safe Harbor can come here and do that, but we cannot have companies that we don't know anything about managing the funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, President Weston.
Morning.
Distinguished members, I am Lamar Williams with Think and Grow, and I just want to briefly touch on the fact, in all due respect to Mr. Bloomfield, that he does not have a relationship with the community and the people and the cannabis users, nor does he have relationships with the hundreds or thousands of vendors that we have talked to. And what's going to happen is he's going to cause the black market to flourish in the city of Los Angeles if you allow these more complicated mandates to be put in place. And we've been working tirelessly to bring people from underground to come and get compliant, but you continue to introduce all of these new ordinances that are just going to cause it to stay underground. And Los Angeles has an opportunity now to be the center, the hub for the rest of the country, people are watching us. And the decisions we make today are going to determine whether or not we succeed or fail.
I agree.
But it's foolish to even be talking about.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Identify yourself.
Good morning. My name is Elliot Robinson, and I am indeed an African American who works in the cannabis industry here in Southern California. I'm speaking on behalf of those who are part of the Los Angeles Delivery Alliance who are seeking provisional licenses. Many of us in the cannabis industry not only face social stigma of being in this particular industry, but heavy-handed regulations which raise the bar of entry for people of color such as myself. After being laid off in 2009 in the height of the recession, it was the cannabis industry that came to my rescue and provided me with an opportunity for honest living and servicing patients who are using cannabis for medical conditions and who are disproportionately people of color and are dealing with the effects of that heavy-handedness. I'm imploring this council to consider the repercussions of these regulations that raise the bar of entry for people such as myself, a proud graduate of Howard University, a historically black university, and a transplant who now considers himself an Angelino. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Mark, you got Mr. Harris Dawson's attention. Okay. Who's a proud graduate of Morehouse? All right. Yes, sir.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. I'm Patrick Brooks. I'm just here to quickly talk about one issue, the buffer zone issue. I'm with a law firm, Margolin and Lawrence, that represents a lot of folks in the licensing cannabis industry. And the one thing keeps coming up again and again, and I used to be a prosecutor for Santa Monica City Attorney. I've seen it from both sides, the defense and the criminal prosecution side. The buffer zone, if it's too close, that means a lot of well-meaning people outside of the retail environment will be negatively impacted by a rule that makes it too strict in terms of the 500, 600 feet rule. We're asking that the council consider changing that rule enough so that at least for non-retail people that aren't just blatantly selling to the public, that those people won't be affected by the rule that may make sense on paper. We want to keep cannabis, I suppose, away from schools and other places, but at the same time, making it too close has a bad impact on non-retail citizens who are just trying to make a living in this exciting industry. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, if I could get Stephen Vasquez, Danielle Socha, Don Ray Vaughn, and is it Joa Silverstein or Silverton? Yes, come on, Steve.
Good morning, Council President Wesson and Marquise Harris-Dawson and Weezar. My name is Stephen Vasquez, and I just wanted to comment on item number 2. I think that what you need to do is just go ahead and collect cash and just let the market deal with this. The people that the dispensaries are going to be taking credit cards, and if you want to pay with a credit card, go right ahead and do that. But let everybody use cash. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Daniel Sosa. I'm the executive director of GLACA, and I also operate La Brea Collective. I would like to comment on the new proposed ordinance that would prohibit cannabis licensees from accepting cash. This proposal doesn't make sense for several reasons. One, there's no other retail business regulated in such an extreme way that they are prohibited from accepting cash as payment. Secondly, if this policy is implemented, it could completely derail the industry. Currently, cannabis commerce is almost all cash, and going from cash only to no cash accepted could seriously derail the legal industry and cause the black market to thrive. Thirdly, a policy such as this would be inherently discriminatory. It might be hard to believe, but not everyone has a bank card or debit card. This policy would discriminate against disadvantaged people who may not have another means besides cash to transact business. I hope you reconsider this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey, man.
Good morning, City Council. My name is Don Ray Vaughn. I'm a local venture capitalist looking at getting into the cannabis sector. I'd like to talk about unintended consequences, some potential unintended consequences as I saw the full council sit here last week. I'm concerned that some of the rules may be moved at the last minute. I'd urge you to consider social equity as 51% of the business. and stand on that for a period of time. I think 33% would cause for investors, such as myself, but the ones that are a little bit greedier than I am, to basically mandate that. So if you give someone an option of a lesser percentage or more percentage, I think someone would choose to have that minority or social equity applicant to have less of a percentage. So I'd urge you to run a pilot, and if you find that social equity people cannot get funded at 51%, then move the needle. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning, President Wesson and council members. I'm Joao Silverstein, Treasurer of UCBA and Managing Director of Strain Collective in Chatsworth. I'd like to address the cash issue. First of all, many of us would be thrilled at the opportunity to go cashless were we availed of the opportunity to have banking, because merchant services are only usable if you have a bank account that you can connect those things to. And at this point in time, we don't have access to merchant services because banking isn't available to us. So I would like to speak very forcefully against adopting this measure now, prior to us having other viable alternatives to be able to deal with this whole situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now, Allison Margolin, Christina Marsh, Jeff Doctor, Cheryl Schumann. Please come forward.
Good morning, council members. Allison Margolin. I'm an attorney in the cannabis space for 15 years. I'm here to speak about a couple issues. Number one, the 600-foot zone for non-retail is presenting a huge problem for both people who are in the micro business as well as non-retail. The way that the maps were zoned didn't consider that there would be a 600-foot buffer the way that now the recommendation is. And given the fact that there's only a 200-foot setback for volatile manufacturing, the 600-foot doesn't make sense. I don't think there's any public policy interest in favor of it, and it does harm potential investors. Secondarily, on the social equity program, I would recommend that there would be a category for people who don't live in the zip codes that are currently addressed. The entire valley is excluded. People who are low income and yet do have cannabis convictions who aren't from the required area codes would be totally excluded from the current social equity program. And I think that should be reconsidered and make one more tier, at least as far as it looks like it's written right now, for people who don't live in the zip codes but who are low income. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi there, my name is Cheryl Schumann. I'm a patient. 10 years ago, roughly this month, I appeared in front of City Council and was facing a death sentence with cancer. It was cannabis that saved my life, and since then I've been an extremely active proponent and advocate for responsible adult use of cannabis and also for medical marijuana patients. The cash system is something that we can't avoid. As the gentleman said earlier, there's no banking for us right now. So to eliminate the cash system for dispensaries right now would literally kill the industry as we know it. I've been working with Jeff Doctor and a number of other Native American friends. We think that we have a solution, and what we would like to do is offer our assistance and guidance in this area to resolve this problem. And I can tell you that 10 years ago when I reported to City Council, I had to go all the way to Israel to save my life, and 10 years later, I'm here because of cannabis. It works, there are solutions, and we have to work together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. My name is Jeff Doctor. I'm the Executive Director of the National Indian and Cannabis Coalition, which is based out of Washington, D.C. I do some work here with tribes here in the state of California, representing them on political issues around the country, also what's happening here in the state, especially with the social and equity law, and trying to ask tribes to give up their sovereignty for licensing purposes. That's really kind of a far stretch to do to one minority group as is, and also what we've been working on potentially to help a lot of what I hear today with the cash issue and different things like that. And being a native lands and sovereignty issues as well, we may have a banking solution for the cannabis industry going forward, and we'd love to have an opportunity to talk with City Council and propose what we have established with Native tribes and using our sovereignty and our ability to do what we do also with gaming. We do $30 billion a year in gaming revenue. We've solved a lot of the issues concerning the cash industry with that, so I just wanted to be here to have an opportunity to present that to you.
You know what, I would highly recommend that you contact my office, especially where it relates to your gaming proposal, not gaming, banking proposal, And also, we'll make sure we pass that on to Mr. Krikorian, who's conducting hearings on the banking issue. So, in fact, just why don't see if we can get his card, because we're open, and I would love to see what your ideas might be.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All
Appreciate
right.
that. You got it.
Come on up. I remember you.
Hi. Hi, Council. Loki Lotion would like to offer a solution and a place for the cannabis business to put their social responsibility in the heart of the city, a place where they could trust their money was going to compassion, to continue the compassion in LA. We believe we have a solution for many issues of legal cannabis, a cannabis resource center funded by the city and social equity. It would field medical calls by an RM for THC overuse and overdose. It would be a place for educational resources, cannabis classes, job fairs, community outreach, etc. Delivery services for the elderly and sick, low cost to no cost medicine for those who cannot afford their medicine in the legal market or the homeless. We created our pain solve for the people. We believe so much in the education that we are willing to forfeit the rights to our company. We work with Children's Hospital Los Angeles, food festivals, Union Rescue, all homeless outreaches, and we would like to see this center happen, and we would like to help as a community to make this happen.
Okay, you're Miss Marsh, right? Right? Your name Christina?
Yes.
Okay, for the record.
I emailed it.
Okay.
But there
Can
it
we
is.
pick that up, Sergeant? Okay, so now I want Parhimi Ricks, Kevin Sin, Kathleen V, and Adam Vine. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Prahim. As a college student at Howard University, I was detained and issued a weed possession charge in South Carolina for carrying less than a gram of marijuana. I am grateful that I wasn't arrested, so my plan was to pay the ticket and move on. Luckily, my mother, being a detective, located the ticket in my wallet and quickly came up with a better plan. We obtained a lawyer and were able to have the ticket expunged from my record. Little did I know that the ticket could have had a huge negative impact on my schooling. The ticket would have caused me to lose access to federal financial aid. I have friends to this day that are still dealing with the effects of having weed charge on their record. Thankfully, I was able to continue receiving financial aid, and I graduated from Howard cum laude and went on to earn my master's in film production from Florida State University. Now I am a manager at a medical marijuana dispensary, and I'm continuing to build my career as a filmmaker. I hope that you all will consider provisional licensing for delivery services.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good morning, council members. I'm Kevin Sen. I'm from Lynx, and one of the payment platforms that's been working with the federal banks throughout the country to bring solutions to the industry. And we have clients in this room, and I would echo some of the sentiments already spoken today, that to not have legitimate federal FDIC-insured banking and to request a cashless system would be very difficult. It's a chicken and egg, though. To bring federal banking, we need not necessarily to go cashless, but to track the cash and remove the anti-money laundering issues that exist in a highly cash-intensive business. We have banks ready right now, California, regional banks ready to bank Los Angeles industry, the cannabis industry, if there is a procedure in place to bring in electronic payments and to also track and manage the cash. And I would simply encourage that there are very, very smart people on both sides of this issue, both in the industry and at the City Hall. I'd encourage everybody to sit down, talk about it, and come to a solution that works for both sides.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. My name is Kathleen, and I just would like to request for the council to consider RAS 3 zoning for District 1. There's a lot of real estate that meets the distance requirements for schools and daycare centers and the other the anonymous places. So I would like to request for them to consider RAS 3 zone, because it would be sad to see this real estate go to waste that could potentially be used. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning, council members. Thank you so much for your work to develop cannabis regulations that are reasonable and fair, and especially for your commitment to including a social equity component. My name is Adam Vine. I'm a resident of the 1st District. also co-founder of Cage Free Cannabis, also based in the First. And I'm here to speak about Section 104.03, related to the application procedure that describes the kind of people who are ineligible to apply for a license. I'm deeply disappointed to see the recommendations exclude nearly any person with a non-cannabis conviction from licensure for 5 to 10 years. This undermines the intentions of Prop 64 and continues to exclude, punish, and oppress formerly incarcerated and convicted people. Furthermore, these amendments don't take into account convictions that have been dismissed, which is specifically protected under Prop 64. We've worked so long to ban the box from job applications, and now this would effectively ban the people. I urge you to reject these ill-begotten amendments and commit to your stated goals of advancing equity through cannabis regulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, if I can get Tomar and Mr. Previn and Brett Vampnick. And I know before you start, some of you have multiple cards. I want to make sure that everybody that's here gets a chance to speak. So for your minute, just get as much into it as you can. So go ahead, Tomer.
Thank you very much, Council. My name is Tomer Graciani. I'm here with the Southern California Coalition. I'd like to remind you that if the main goal of this regulation is to get rid of the illicit market, the Council needs to incentivize all the illegal businesses right now to get into the legal market rather than add hurdles to them. I think things like any person that's convicted of conducting illegal cannabis activity after April 1st, 2018 kind of goes against the social equity program, because I can only imagine that a lot of the people that you're trying to help with the social equity program will continue doing these businesses because they have no other option. I also think that the fees that you guys are looking to incur, which is $9,000 for the Prop D compliant, to almost $12,000 for any provisional license that's not Prop D, and $8,000 for any other cannabis license, no matter what it is, even if it's a cottage cultivator, will just make it harder to get into the industry, both for mom and pop shops and for equity.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Previn, followed by Brett, followed by Noreen. Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's Eric Previn from CD2. And I must tell you, the idea of banning the use of cash feels quasi-illegal or unconstitutional. I think you need to look a little closer. I think you're going to be sued immediately over that. It's a terrible idea. Also, the idea of a public bank, obviously it has crossed our minds, the idea of this beautiful tribunal of characters running a public bank, and whereas you do have experience in issues of money laundering, I think that we should not go in that direction. The idea of the transit occupancy tax is currently being basically earmarked inside the mayor's office exclusively. There's no public records about that is a good enough reason, but also the refund program in which friends of the city get apportionment consultations. Englander is slinking around somewhere. He got Fox News an $89,000 refund, which is on the Budget and Finance agenda today. We can't have you guys doing the banking, with all due respect. And finally, we want Californians wanted to decriminalize marijuana. When we over-regulate, it's something very, very bad.
Thank you. Yes, please identify yourself.
Morning, Council. Brett Vapnick from Perennial Holistic in Studio City. I am here to speak on issue 2 about the banking. Access to banking, access to cashless payment system is an interesting goal, and it was originally put on the agenda to be discussed and not be implemented with such a short time window to go through the implications of it and how it actually work in practice. Some of us have access to a credit card. It's like a normal business, maybe 50 to 60% is credit card, but we still have a large portion of our customers that use cash. The example given by the other council member of Hawaii, that's a brand new program. We probably have more patients in one of our dispensaries than the entire state of Hawaii has currently, and it's a new thing and it hasn't really been implemented fully to see how it would actually work in practice. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Come on, Noreen.
Good morning, Noreen McClendon, Concerned Citizens of South Central Los Angeles. The first thing is the cashless option sounds like a precursor to some cronyism. The only way it might even remotely be acceptable is if it also includes a provision that prohibits the selection of a single company that would handle card transactions. The social equity regulations unfairly burden social equity licensees, where general applicants get to use best efforts for local hire. Social equity has a higher percentage, and they shall. The language is skewed. The general applicant is not required to get approval for startup loans, but the social equity applicants are. Then there will be a list of companies that can select startup loans. Sounds like cronyism to me again. The language currently written treats social equity applicants as unsophisticated people that need someone to dictate their startup funds, who they hire, and how they accept payment for their products, while others are not burdened with these requirements. The requirement that the social equity applicant be low income is biased because it requires people that have not been able to rise above poverty to be saddled with.
Thank you. So if I can get Tyrone Freeman, Jared, I saw Jared, I see him in the back. Jared, come on down, and Virgil Grant. Mr. Freeman.
Mr. President, members of the council, thank you. Tyrone Freeman, CMA. I want to speak on several issues. The first issue I'd like to speak on is the issue of the banking. Again, I want to set the record straight. The majority of users of marijuana are not people of color who've been disadvantaged. And so they actually do have access to credit cards. But the important issue to remember financially is the predatory lending practices of banks and institutions when they don't have a check and balance. And I think it's important as we move forward to this to understand that a centralized banking system and actually government would serve a meaningful purpose for the city to do something innovative and actually lead the way for a city bank in regards to cannabis. Secondly, I want to discuss social equity. Again, I think it's very important. Look, everyone is not going to be happy with everything that comes out. So I think it's very important for the city to establish a possibility of a waiver process that allows for circumstances that are unlike any other to be reviewed, evaluated through the cannabis department that may seem exceptions, whether it be the density area of space, whether it be particular licensing. That will help us to move forward. And I want to close by saying the regulation process is an opportunity to take a nascent industry, move us forward, and we'll figure out how we can make it the best industry it can be as we work collectively together.
Thank you. Jared?
Hello, thank you for this time. I'll get right to it. Who are we trying to support here? Are we really trying to support an emerging legal market? Or are we trying to embolden the black market by suggesting a cashless system that have no studies done, no market research, and no logical way to interact with the rest of the... We have no logical way to interact with the rest of the state in this industry. Everyone wants lower risk with cash handling, so listen to experts as they roll out solutions and adopt rules that have fully formed market integration. This is a cart before the horse. Without banking, we can't go cashless. Where's this cashless system going to go? Where's this money going to be stored? I introduced links to the LA Office of Finance so that we could offer solutions to paying our taxes in somewhat way of reducing risk to pay our taxes in cashless ways. Now you're using this instrument now to regulate a legal market in its infancy, and you're over-regulating it. So we need to find some integration into this industry in a way we're going to roll into less cash. But right now, to have no banking and to force cashless systems down our throat.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. My name is Virgil Grant, co-founder of California Minority Alliance and president of Southern California Coalition. I just wanted to address the banking issues. We take pretty much, I would say, 99.9% cash coming through our business and hand out that to vendors and people that supply us. So stopping this, our business would stop. We wouldn't have a business. Majority of the people that are in my district, which is District 8, that comes and purchases from us is all cash. Nobody comes with a credit card. We don't have a credit card machine to operate, and it would also be inconvenient for them to go to an ATM if they had a credit card and drive all the way back to us. It would just be inconvenient. Also, the 1,000 feet, I'm proposing 600 feet as a state, or if we have to compromise 750, if I have to move over 1,000 feet, you're going to push me into a daycare center, which is another 1,000 feet, and then push me over as another 1,000 feet. So I've really been capped 3,000 feet instead of 1,000 feet. Please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. So if I can get Yolanda Aldez, I think it's Beth Osterman, and Alejandra Mataquin. Please come forward.
Good morning, council members and President Wesson. I'm here as representing UCBA as well as DC Collective. And I'm here to share my sentiments on the new recommendation and replacement language pertaining to sensitive land use of 1,000 feet. As a parent, I want the best for my children, and their safety is priority. But as a working mom, it's hard knowing that I could potentially lose my job in the event that what happens if nature does what it does. We have our business burns down, or our landlord refuses to renew our lease. Right now, we're okay. We are a Prop D, Measure M. We're okay right now, but what happens with that buffer? What happens if our business, we're not able to renew our lease? Now we're going to have a very difficult time being able to keep 30-plus employees and our business afloat. As well, when it comes to banking, I'm the last one to say that I enjoy going out and paying cash to DWP or paying all the bills in cash, but we do definitely need a better system.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm Beth Osterman. I'm owner and co-founder of Loki Lotion. We are a compassion brand that believes that everyone needs safe and affordable access to pain relief. We already have too many roadblocks to access. Affordability after licensing will be impossible and harmful for economically challenged communities. We need cannabis resource centers to help bridge the gap of fear and understanding and provide affordable medicine. We need to change and address language of marijuana overdose to overuse. A call center should be activated as soon as possible for cannabis education, and we need to be promoting PSAs about what cannabis is and what it can do for our communities, and we just need to educate our communities. There's so much fear around cannabis, and I was one of those that turned to cannabis to save my own life. And I believe that we need to give that to our communities.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, good morning, honored members of the Rules Committee. My name is Alejandra Marroquin, and on behalf of First 5 LA, I want to thank the members of the city's Rules Committee for their leadership and support for previously including youth development and education in the city's social equity program. As a public entity that advocates for real and meaningful change for young children and parents, we are here to ask you to reconsider including the Community Reinvestment Program into the overall program. By including the social equity program, and in particular, the Community Reinvestment Fund, the City of Los Angeles has a unique opportunity to revitalize our communities. By incorporating a strong focus on education and youth development that explicitly targets children and youth from the ages of 0 to 18, the City of Los Angeles ensures that funding and other resources are being allocated to this age range in communities most affected by prior cannabis policy and enforcement. More importantly, by putting our children and youth first, we are changing their future and strengthening our city. Again, we recognize the city's Rules Committee and the LA City Council for your leadership on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And then after you, I want Nina Royal. I think it's Melanie Luthern. And somebody put in a card that just says Social Equity Program, Compassionate Care of Studio City, but you didn't give me a name. So if you're here, come on. Yes. Go ahead.
Good morning, President Council Wesson. I'm a member of your district. I manage a dispensary.
And your name again?
My name, Aline Gazarian, and our dispensary is Organic Green Treatment Center. We are a cornerstone of our community. The limitations being set on cash transactions prevent us from being effective in our neighborhood, pay taxes, wages, and contribute to overall social equity of this community. If we do not make cannabis attainable, we will instigate unsafe, unregulated transactions back to the streets. Please help me help my community by letting us economically participate and contribute value to the lives of our members. We need to continue to provide opportunities for those who need our leadership. It's not about us or the business owners, it's about the members of that community.
Thank you.
you.
Nina?
Good morning. Nina Royal, Sunland Tonga Neighborhood Council. I'm land use member, and I'm also chair of the Safety Committee. To save time, everything that Michael Guerra and the members from Sun Valley spoke with this morning, we concur with. We already saw everything that they wrote, and for the safety of time. One thing that I'm really concerned about is cannabis is a very volatile industry. And when you're doing cash business, it really leads to violence, and it leads to burglaries, et cetera, and so therefore we believe that the 1,000 feet is really necessary for the protection of other businesses, schools, et cetera, that are around the area. Also, personally speaking, not as a member of the neighborhood council, but me, Nina, I think that anyone that is on that commission for the cannabis has to disclose their financial involvement, which they are not doing. I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Nina. Next, please identify yourself.
Good morning, Melanie Lutheran, attorney at Schwartzstein Superior Counsel to UFCW Local 770. We extend our continued gratitude to the Council for the robust public process leading up to the regulations and ordinance before the Council today. But we would like to offer our brief comments on Item 2, prohibiting cash transactions at and by commercial cannabis businesses. This policy is premature at this time. Council should table it until we are able to observe the implementation of the regulations and until cannabis banking becomes a reality. The ordinance and regulations before us today have benefited from an extended public dialogue, and Council should engage in a similar strategy with regards to banking. We should have a variety of study sessions with regards to banking and take up this policy after the industry has been up and running for about 6 months or so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, and if you give us your name.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No
my
problem.
name is Calvin Fry, and I'm owner of Compassionate Caregivers of Studio City, one of the pre-ICOs. This is my 13th year, and I would definitely like to support the social equity program because in those 13 years, probably started out, I could count the number of African Americans or other minorities on my one hand, and I've traveled all around the country speaking in Colorado, Washington, and whatnot, and still 13 years later, I could probably still count the number of people on my hand. So I support that. I want that to really work. I want to help Mrs. Packer and the council in any way that I can by maybe mentoring or whatever, because if you hand out a bunch of licenses to people who haven't run this business without mentoring and finance, it's not going to work. So I just want to offer my support, and Mrs. Packer, whatever you need, I'm here to help out, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let me get Mr. Spindler. Come on. It's Awet Kidane, Joe Cook,
Love you, Herb.
Robert.
We love you. Everybody loves you.
Mr. Spindler, don't start. Just come on and you got your minute. Go ahead.
CityWatchLA.com tonight. Read the story. Protected free speech, my friend.
You got to stay on the agenda.
Yeah. Now, see, everybody loves everybody. I called my credit card company. I asked them, I want to buy cannabis with my credit card. If it violates federal law and it crosses interstate lines, it's illegal. It's a crime. So the credit card company cannot oblige. That's what you're doing. This rule, as applied, is unconstitutional and illegal under federal banking regulations, item number 2. You can accept cash. United States versus Al Capone. Even in a criminal activity, cash is acceptable for all debts, private and public. So get rid of this cashless shit. Let people pay cash. Let people grow weed. Everybody get fucking high.
All right, if I could get Robert Chiala, and is it Shanice Bullock? Mr. Spindler, you had your minute. Now shut up, all right? Okay, sir.
Mr. President, members, thank you, Awa Kidani, Kidani and Associates representing Groundworks Industries. Two main points I would like to make on behalf of Groundworks. One, we would like to thank the city and this body for the courageous efforts with the social equity program. We believe that a diverse marketplace is a healthy marketplace. Second point, as former director of the State Department of Consumer Affairs, licensed 3.5 million licensees within the state, I want to strongly recommend, with respect, this body to look at license applications on a case-by-case basis with regard to the non-retail buffer zone. We believe that allowing this body, allowing the City of Los Angeles to look at the buffer zone with regard to each applicant gives this body more flexibility and the ability to mitigate any deficiencies that this body may see fit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please identify yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Joe Kirkendall. I've been a cultivator since 2009. In 2010, my house was raided. My dog died. It took a year of expensive court costs for me to finally win my case. I was unable to work. It basically bankrupted me, and I think it's unfair that I won't be able to be included in the equity program. Also, 600 feet for non-retail doesn't make sense. I'd like you to please take a second look at that. All right.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, identify yourself.
Morning, Robert Shlala. I'm a PhD candidate at USC, working with UFCW Local 770 on research on social equity. Just want to thank you sincerely for your continued pursuit of social equity in the most robust way that aligns with and rectifies the damage of the war on drugs, so it continues to keep data on the actual impact of the war on drugs at the center of it, along with community engagement. And with that, I want to stress the importance of including these kind of broader local hire provisions within both the general applicant category and social equity category, and providing ways for employers to actually certify these workers in these categories and workforce development opportunities, because employers can't often ask the kind of questions to certify these workers. And with that, we also want to continue to stress the importance of a community reinvestment fund and directing funds to actually mitigate the broader damages. Not everyone will get a license, not everyone will work in this industry, but the war on drugs has caused tremendous damage. It's time to repair that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning. My name's Chauncey Bullock. I'm actually a property owner, dispensary owner, and I would love to work toward getting approved for the socioeconomic program that's existing, or we're working toward having existing. But my concern would be that collecting of cash and how it is, I guess, we're not to be able to collect cash should we be approved and be open for business. If you look at the information to get approved to have a license, there are quite a few hoops, quite a few roads to go down, and quite a few mountains to climb. So with that, you're opening up everything as an applicant to you. So it would behoove you to allow us to operate accordingly, since the reason why we're doing this is because it is considered as a global cash cow. So in allowing us to manage the situation, it would behoove you to let us accept cash.
Thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to do, Mr. Clerk, is close public comment at this time. Based on all of the cards that we received, everyone was afforded the opportunity to speak that put in a card. Maybe some not as much as they would like, but the point is, Mr. Spindler, in fact, I've already warned you enough. Sergeants, why don't you find him a seat removed from the rest of the people here that are taking this item seriously? Mr. Spindler, I can still hear you. So no, Mr. Spindler, you're being removed, so you're not sitting down. You're getting up and you're leaving. Okay, now let's move away from lunacy and get back to something that's very important.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Just for the record, this person is very litigious, and I wanted to ask the city attorney if he could put in for the record that, in fact, this individual wasn't being touched, and we only have a recording of this meeting, so we want to make sure that if that was heard in the audio, what actually happened.
That's correct. He was not being touched. He was simply being escorted out, and I don't know if the microphone caught it, but he was shouting all the way out and disrupting this meeting and preventing us from continuing our business.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do at this time is ask the planning, city attorney, Ms. Packard, to come to the center table. And I want to thank all of the people that are here today. You know, we began this hearing process back in May of 2016. Many of you were at that very first hearing and have been to every hearing that we've had since. I want to assure you that we do the best that we can to try to listen and to make adjustments. Nobody ever gets everything that they want, but we're trying to be as open, transparent, and as fair as we can. This, folks, is the beginning of the conversation, really, on this issue. It is not the end. This will be something that I think will be going on for quite some time. I want to ask Andrew from my office to join the center table as well, because what I want to, before we open it up to the other members of the committee, Andrew, if you could give us a quick review of some of the amendments. And I know we've had a lot of people that have come in today and had concerns where it relates to item 2, the no cash option. And I want you to know that what we have attempted to do on this committee is to vet every issue. So we will be vetting that issue. It's just my comfort level is not there as of today to move forward with that. But I want you to know in advance, conceptually, it is worth us looking into. So on that item, Andrew, Mr. Clerk, I'm going to have that referred or kept in committee, and we will have a more robust conversation about that as we move this entire issue forward. So so I think what we want to do, why don't we just, Andrew Westall, we'll let you just run through generally, then I'll open it up for questions at this point, and I'll afford the other members at the center table if they want to make a statement, fine, but I just think that's the best way to proceed. So why don't you talk about the amendments, and I think we passed out copies of the amendments to whoever would want one. But Andrew, if you quickly go through that.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Andrew Westall, Assistant Chief Deputy to Council President Herb Wesson. I'm going to briefly summarize the recommendations that were distributed for items 1 and item 3. The bulk of the recommendations in front of you today are technical in nature, but I did want to highlight a variety of specific items. The first item is that it would add language to the licensing ordinance and rules and regulations to add anti-retaliation provisions in substantial conformity to the current living wage ordinances of the city. And that particular provision was approved by council on October 31st. The second two pieces are items E and F, which deal with the PCN limits. And this comes from the discussion in council that we had last Tuesday, more specifically from Mr. Englander. The first one in E would have that a microbusiness license, if it's conducting retail operations, would count towards the retail license limit under the PCN. And if a microbusiness was conducting cultivation, it would count towards the cultivation license limit in the PCN. Item F was a reworking of the formula for the cultivation PCN limit. This new formula is based on the actual industrial land in the city. And so the ratio there is 1 square feet of cultivated area for every 350 square feet of land zoned for cultivation, with an aggregate of 100,000 square feet of cultivated area per community plan and a maximum aggregate number of 15 licenses per community plan at a ratio of 1 license for every 2,500 square feet. So for example, if you only had, say, 10,000 square feet of available land, based on the ratios that were described before, you'd only have 4 licenses available in that particular area. The next one that I want to highlight is item I, which deals with license and eligibility. And it would modify the language in that section relative to license and eligibility to state that the department may deny application and licensure due to prior non-cannabis drug felonies based on a determination of license suitability that would be recommended by the department and approved by the commission. The next section,
Take
J,
another moment and kind of break that down a little bit.
Sure. So the idea under that one, as the ordinances are currently drafted, there's a 5-year ban for non-cannabis drug felonies. This would provide an opportunity for folks that have non-cannabis drug felonies to go through a process with the department and the commission, and if they were found to be suitable for licensure and approved by the commission, then they would be able to get a license from the city of Los Angeles.
Continue.
The next one deals with neighborhood councils, and we heard a lot of comment about that in particular today. This first one on J deals with the drafting area. And on that particular piece, you would add language that said an applicant shall provide written evidence to the department that the applicant notified the local neighborhood council of the pending application, and the applicant offered to appear before the neighborhood council to address questions about the application. The next section is item S. Item S deals with the local hire requirements, and this would add language to both social equity and the general local hire requirements that would require applicants to work with local community-based organizations, work source centers, and other such similar organizations for job outreach, development, and placement services. They would be required to provide a report twice a year, once in January and once in July, to the department to show evidence of those efforts, and so that they're doing their best to meet those goals of those requirements of local hire. The next section that I want to highlight is really items X through double C that deal with the social equity program. In general, for the social equity program, what's being proposed to you is the combining what is currently in the current draft ordinances, both Tier 1 and Tier 2. And so Tier 1 and Tier 2 would be combined into one tier, and then what today is Tier 3 would be relabeled Tier 2, and what today is Tier 4 would be relabeled Tier 3.
So we'll have 3 tiers.
Correct. And this would also add language to the new Tier 3 to require 30% social equity for local hire. It would also have modifications to some of the minimum property requirements. And there are a couple technical changes that I'd like to request in this particular section. Frankly, in terms of testing, distributor, and retail, all of those sections, it should be a minimum of 1,000 square feet or 10% of the applicant's business premises. And so that's not listed here, and I would respectfully ask for that change. And then the last piece here is, in terms of social equity, is redefining who that social equity worker is for that application of local hire. And that would be an individual who is low income and has a prior California cannabis conviction, or low income and lives in a disproportionately impacted area. Beyond that, in terms of item 1, there are a couple of other recommendations. One is a report back so that the committee and the council can get their handle on what a cannabis event organizer license and a temporary cannabis event license is, and how we can regulate those. To add a management analyst position to the Department of Cannabis Regulation to serve as the social equity program coordinator, giving the department, with the assistance of the CAO, the ability to release RFQs for a variety of the social equity programs, And then lastly, and if you'd like, Ms. Packer can give you more detail on what this actually is, but authorize the department and Ms. Packer to negotiate and approve on behalf of the City of Los Angeles participation in the County of Los Angeles's Emblemine Program and Education Program relative to commercial cannabis businesses. And so those are the recommendations as proposed on item 1. In terms of item 3, there's a lot less pages and less highlights, but I want to handle a couple of them. So on item 3, which deals with the planning ordinance, the first one, number A, would add open space or areas that are zoned open space in the City of Los Angeles to the definition of a public park. The second one, item D, would take, right now in the draft ordinances with respect to daycare centers, a retail business cannot be located next to or on the same property of a retail business. In the new recommendations, daycare centers are treated like the rest of the sensitive uses that are described under the planning ordinance, and the sensitive use buffers is changed to a 700-foot radius. Items E and F deal with the Playa Vista specific plan and the Oxford Triangle specific plan. The zones that are referenced in the planning ordinance in those particular areas are actually multifamily residential, even though they are zone commercial. And so there was a request by Councilmember Bonin to remove those areas. And with that, that's all I have for you, Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Weezer, didn't you want to add an amendment that deals with the appeal process or something?
Yes, Mr. President, I actually have two amendments. The first deals with the appeal process. We wanted to remain consistent with other land use practices, and we did that earlier in the process by making that consistent, but the fees still remain not consistent with respect to the non-applicant appeals. So currently a non-applicant appeal would cost about $4,000, and a non-applicant appeal, most land use cases like this are in the range of $89 to $100. So I'd like to move to amend the ordinance to add a non-applicant appeals fee to be set at $100 and request city attorney to draft revised ordinance for final council consideration on December 13th, 2017.
Okay.
That's for item 3. Also, I'd like to move on item 1 that we amend item 1 to clarify that all cannabis licensees can only do business with other cannabis licensees, and violation of this will result in a moderate level offense. As we move forward, one of the most difficult things we have right now with Prop D is the rogue operators and making sure that we provide proper enforcement. This will allow us to have those who are licensed to operate, whether it's on the retail and or any part of the chain of from consumer, from grower to consumer, that we have licensed individuals doing that.
Okay. Mr. Westall?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just one thing I forgot. There was some discussion today about community benefits agreements and about the Community Reinvestment Fund. I just wanted to remind the committee that based on the council actions last week, that discussion was tabled to the committee meeting in January, and it's expected that the committee would take that up and have a robust discussion about those issues.
When we return. Yeah. Okay. I had a note I was going to ask you about that. So before I see Mr. Harris Dawson, if you had any concerns, why don't we have the folk introduce themselves that are at the table, starting with planning.
Good morning. Phyllis Nathanson with the Planning Department.
Kat Packer, Department of Cannabis Regulation.
David Michelson with the Office of the City Attorney.
Asha Greenberg, also with the Office of City Attorney.
Okay, Mr. Harris Dawson, any questions or concerns at this point?
No, I mean, at this point, I think most of the items are clear. With regard to the community reinvestment and the community benefits packages, I know we tabled that last week. I guess I want a little bit of description of the envelope or the parameters which we can operate with regard to those. You know, they've been a part of the conversation almost from the beginning. So I understand we're stepping back from them, but I wanted to get a sense of what our limitations will be and what the possibilities are going forward.
Ms. Packard, you want to handle that one? Or Dave?
Sure. Dave Michelson with City Attorney's Office. I think the Department of Cannabis Regulation, the CAO, CLA, all with the assistance of the City Attorney's Office, are going to be really looking to figure out any options that could be available to the council to help fund that community fund. Whether it would be a tax that might require having to go back to the voters, whether it is an appropriate fee that could be assessed, and whether there's a nexus that needs to be studied. Really, any and all options, I think the departments and the offices are going to be looking at and trying to be as creative as possible, so when we do come back, the council can have a robust and informed conversation about what are the options to fund the fund and how the fund can be used.
Also, just a bit of clarification for my colleague, Mr. Weezar's second amendment about cannabis businesses doing business with other cannabis business. As far as we know, are there any legal restrictions or impediments to sort of non-cannabis businesses in the city of Los Angeles doing business with cannabis business? So like if I have a janitorial firm or an accounting firm or I'm a painter or whatever, we don't have any legal restrictions on them interacting with cannabis businesses as far as we know, right?
That's correct. As far as we know, there's no restriction.
Okay, no more questions or concerns. All right, so why don't we move forward in what I believe will make the next 48 hours historic and would take the city of Los Angeles and put us in front of this issue. You know, you can have opportunities in life to be part of history. You don't have a lot of opportunities to make history, and that's what we're doing here. So, Mr. Clerk, on item 1, let's adopt the recommendations of the chair. Item 2, we'll continue that item and instruct the Office of Finance to report to committee as instructed by the council. I think we did that in October. Item 3 will adopt the recommendations of the chair. Item 4 will adopt the CAO report and city attorney report and draft ordinance as amended, and instruct the CAO to report to Budget and Finance Committee on December 11th with a fully detailed budget and staffing plan for DCR. And item 5, we'll adopt the Bureau of Contract Administration report and refer that item to Budget and Finance as well. Yes, I got you, Jose. Yes?
I just wanted to mention on item 1, I think Mr. Weezar had an amendment, and then I had some technical amendments. So if we could approve those as well.
Okay. Mr. Weezar.
Yes, that's what I wanted to clarify. When you mentioned in item 1 and 3 that we are adopting recommendation from the chair, those included the 2 amendments I made respectively for 1 and 3 that you took as friendly, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So unless there are more questions, concerns, or objections, without objection, so ordered. Mr. Clerk, is there any other business before this committee?
No, sir.
This committee's adjourned. Thank you all again very much.